Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Graumlich, and I am the Dean of the University of Washington College of the Environment. I want to begin by acknowledging that the campus and the buildings of the University of Washington are on the land of the Coast Salish peoples, the land which touches the shared waters of all the tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. They are our valued partners and a vital part of our community. I also want to mention that we are recording this discussion and we will make it available on the college's YouTube channel in the coming days. So if you have a question, please email it to, get out your pencil, COENVCOM, all one word, at uw.edu. And we will monitor that email throughout the conversation. Once again, that is COENVCOM at uw.edu. Okay, so welcome to the 2020 State of the College address, which is different in so many ways. I'm glad you are here and you can join us for a discussion about the year that's gone by. And let's actually get the hard stuff out of the way first. This has been a challenging year. Remote work, remote learning have caused us to miss so many connections with each other, with the community, with our campus. And at the same time, what I've been able to witness is that we have not lost our connection to our purpose. The College of the Environment is home to around 1,500 students, 95 postdocs, and more than 1,000 faculty, research, and administrative staff. You are working to continuously evolve our science and to grow its impact and to ensure that our research is on the cusp of discovery and that research informs environmental policy and law and business and culture. And it's an amazing college. This is going to be my last State of the College address as Dean. And I feel honored more than ever to be bringing us together to talk through the amazing things that the future holds for this college. So with that, I'd like to formally introduce Mark Richards. He is our provost. He is the Executive Vice President for Academic Affairs at the University of Washington. And I would argue more importantly, he's a geophysicist. He holds a faculty appointment in our college's own Department of Earth and Space Sciences. So he is both a geophysicist and our university's chief academic and budget officer. I'm so happy to have you with us here today, Mark. Welcome. So I'm going to turn it over to you to start, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa. This is a great honor to be doing this with my dean. And before we get too far into this, I don't know how all this is going to go today, but is 12 years, is that correct, Lisa, since you took the helm?
11, only 11.
It's going on 12. And I want a round of applause for a brilliant job of starting the College of the Environment from everybody. Okay? So
I can hear it.
Yeah, I know this virtual Zoom applause business is not like the real thing, but I'm sure everybody was clapping with me, Lisa, and just congratulations on stewarding the beginnings of the college, which is really unique in terms of its scope and mission, and brings enormous credit to the University of Washington and to the state of Washington. You prompted me to begin by talking a little bit about resilience, both in terms of the college and the University of Washington over the last 7 months. I have to say, it seems like 7 years. It seems like a different world that's long gone from what we are experiencing right now. And we've become accustomed to a level of change, a rate of change that perhaps is unprecedented in most of our lives. My primary comment about this, having kind of watched this unfold from a front row seat over this period of time, is that our faculty and our staff and our students and our postdocs, our partners, community partners, our alumni, have just behaved and responded magnificently. It's really quite unbelievable. I will tell you that I was in a room um, in before the beginning, at the end of the winter quarter, before the beginning of the spring quarter, where President Cauce and our senior team decided that the spring quarter would be remote. And we all just took a deep breath. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know how it would work. We were the first university in the country to do this, because you'll remember that state of Washington was most quickly impacted by this disease. And we didn't really know what would come out the other side. We knew that we had a tough decision to make. And I look back on that and I'm kind of astonished at what we were able to accomplish. Obviously, many things have been lost. We miss each other. We miss in-person classes. We miss being able to go into our labs as often and freely as we used to. And there have been many impacts on people, of course. Our frontline medical workers performed magnificently and brought us through the early parts of this crisis probably better than any other state. And the University of Washington Medical Center itself, their performance was unbelievable through this. But many other challenges that we've had, not the least is caregiving during this crisis. We all know that in practical fact, this affects women, students and faculty and staff more. And we have tried to be accommodating and provide extra resources, but frankly, it's never enough in these circumstances. And we appreciate the sacrifices and the incredible resilience that has gone along with this. I have to say that I'm concerned. I think that psychologists like to say that when we face a crisis or an emergency, we often go into what they call hypervigilance mode and perform, with the adrenaline and everything else at a higher level. After a while, it starts to wear us down. We did have the summer break, but now we're into the fall quarter. And right now, we don't know what our prospects are for reconvening in person. We've just announced, for example, that the winter quarter will be pretty much as the fall quarter, that is mostly remote. And in fact, we fear on the basis of the epidemiologists' predictions that things are going to likely get a lot worse before they get better in this country. So we have a long way to go, and we have to continue to be resilient, but we have to take care of each other, and we have to behave insofar as possible with grace. And this has, of course, been exacerbated by people often talk about a crisis of racism. Well, there's been a crisis of racism in this country since 1619, but the new recognition and the civil strife regarding this have kind of taken our breath away as well. And that has left some communities more impacted than others, certainly through this. So my main reaction to all this is one of incredible gratitude and honor for the university community coming together. I can't imagine how we could have done better. I'm sure there are certain things we could have done better and decisions we might have made in more timely fashion if we'd had perfect foresight. But I'm very proud of what has happened. And I guess without rattling on too much longer, I would be really interested, Lisa, in your perspective from the standpoint of the college about how this question of resilience and challenge has worked out.
Boy, Mark, I remember so distinctly as we sat on the cusp of making that decision this spring to go online and really asking myself, like, are we ready? And, of course, we weren't completely ready. But what became in the college and the environment really obvious was that we had people that had been working with remote learning, with online learning, with hybrid learning for a number of years and had been using it to reach less conventional audiences. And it wasn't just that they were up on sort of tools, that they could make various web tools work, but But they had thought a lot about online learning strategies. How do you learn best as individuals, as teams? And so early on, we put together an online teaching team. And I'm not going to have the time to do a lot of calling out of specific names, but these people really were our heroes. And it was Christy Strauss and Mikkel Newer and Carrie Naish and Jose Guzman and Monica Moscal and Tim Essington and Kat Hubers. And they worked hand in glove with faculty who were very new to this kind of teaching, as well as sort of in training the wisdom of faculty that had more experience. And we coped, and we did more than cope, and we did cool, we sent camera traps out, and we sent kits with plants, and we figured out all sorts of ways that the kind of immersive hands-on learning that is the signature of the college could actually be manifest in our learning. The technology continues to evolve in wonderful ways. And Mark, have you seen the light boards? Do you know what I'm talking about? Those really cool setups where it's actually a glass chalkboard that's sort of full of light, and you can write on it, and the students see you and they see your writing. And
I haven't, but now I want to.
Oh yeah, okay, so we will make sure you see our little video. Somebody here is going to help me get that to Mark. It's so cool. And so one of the things, the online learning team, particularly Tim Essington, became a champion of this. And we've got at least 3 of those studios being set up, once again, shared between academic units, and people just sort of embracing this as an opportunity to increase their effectiveness. The last thing that I want to say, I don't know that you're fully aware of, is following all the rules, with sort of sanctioned by the Provost office. We actually are teaching in person this fall in Friday Harbor Labs. If you think about Friday Harbor Labs, it's our little bubble of relative COVID safety. It's an island on an island, so we have sort of more control than usual. And we started slow this summer. In B-Turn, we had 18 students up there. We now have what we're calling our freshman experiment going on at Friday Harbor Labs. And the experiment is, can we provide safe, engaging, immersive style studies to first quarter freshmen? And so what does it mean to be COVID safe? We've created this series of bubbles, and thus far people are staying in their bubbles despite being freshmen. All the students are restricted to the campus. You can't go to town. You can't have visitors. The parents had to say goodbye to their students at the gate of Friday Harbor Labs. The students were tested just before they arrived, 4 days before the start of classes. They were quarantined in their 6-person pods. These pods become really important. And then they were retested. And they have to stay in their pods. This is the people they eat with. This is the people that are their lab mates. You can't cross pods. You got to stay in your pod. If you're not in your pod, you are masked and socially distanced. And it's always that way. It's, no exceptions. We're doing daily health attestations, and within these structures, people do lab work, they do field work, they do yoga, they do trivia night, they have marine biology movie nights. And we've got 35 freshmen up there. There's 8 classes that are being sort of both in person and synchronous Zoom to the Seattle campus. We've also got 20 upperclassmen there that are doing research apprenticeships. And this is the largest fall enrollment we've ever had at Friday Harbor Labs. And so what I'd like to reflect on is, yes, it's been a heck of a 6-7 months, and people have struggled to cope, to just sort of deliver. And at the same time, there has been some incredible creativity about how do we use this crisis to innovate and to create opportunities that we wouldn't have before. And I really want to do a shout out to Megan Detier, the director of FHL, and the whole FHL team, and their support people back on campus, and the people that helped them go through all those iterations of the plan before we actually approved it, that allowed us to do this. So what I feel like what we have been able to do is pay attention to resilience, Mark, and at the same time see where is it that there's some opportunities to do things differently that in the potentially will make Friday Harbor Labs more accessible to the campus and more completely a part of the incredible opportunities we have in marine studies and in the college more generally. So, Mark, so we've got this, like, people are gonna be able to tell we've got this like really well organized. I get to ask you a question now. And
Okay.
what I want to do is pause a little bit, and we've both been doing science for a long time. And one of the things I've seen, I know one of the things we've talked about is that over the course of our careers, we've seen more growth in scientists doing applied work and collaborating with communities. It's not just something that is off in a specific land grant mission. It's, you know, it's part of our R1 mission. And what have you seen in terms of that discovery science, problem focused, community engagement work from your point of view, particularly as a kind of both as a geophysicist, but as the provost at UW?
Oh, that's a great question, Lisa. Let me start answering that by going back to something you were saying just a minute ago, which is that the notion that when the COVID is over, we're going back to the way we used to do things is not going to happen. You know, we just, you know, under duress, got all of our faculty pretty much to learn how to teach remotely and use, and you know, not just that, but to use new methods and technology and teaching and new ways of reaching students. Now, none of us will want to go back to remote learning for the most part, because we like being with each other. We like seeing people and interacting with them. But the skill set and the, I would say the new prism we have on learning will be enduring. You know, the lecture style of teaching is known to be about the least effective way of teaching people. And we inherited it from medieval times. And it's taken COVID-19 to basically kick us into the 21st century. And I think that will apply not only to teaching, but also to the way we conduct research. That the kind of opportunities you're talking about for interdisciplinary work, applied work, community outreach will mushroom, because we've learned how to contact people and become engaged without necessarily getting on an airplane or a ferry to Friday Harbor, which is something I would love to do right now, actually. But you know, there's I have a caution that I'd like to, you know, in terms of how I've seen things change. There's something that concerns me. I compare, you know, my career development to that of my children, for example. And something that concerns me, which is that along with this incredible power of information technology and social media and the internet and so forth, comes what I would call a factor of distraction that is very, I don't think we're evolved very well to cope with it, to be honest with you. And a lot of, you talk about discovery and research. Yes, discovery and research can be accelerated by lots more contact, but it can also be distracted by limiting our ability to focus, our ability to have quiet time, either with ourselves or with groups of people, and frankly, just to have time to think. And I find myself struggling with this, and perhaps the younger generation will adapt better and more quickly. But I do think that one thing I say sometimes to young scientists is, don't try to do everything at once, even if it seems that everything is coming at you at once and available to you on your computer screen. Take a deep breath, enjoy being a scientist, and enjoy the contemplation and the thinking and the fellowship that comes with it. And let's use information technology, but let's not be used by it and become overwhelmed by it. So I don't mean to be pessimistic in that regard, but I do think we need to be conscious that along with some of these opportunities come some challenges.
Boy, Mark, you know what? I couldn't agree with you more. And when I think about this, I always think there's three elements that are absolutely critical. And it's interesting because one of them is time. And the fact that, you know, the problems that engage us are serious and interesting and intriguing and compelling, and we want to make a difference tomorrow. And it's the deep engagement with the problem that takes that sort of time and sort of thoughtful maturation of our understanding of the problem, particularly when it's a problem that we are engaging with community members about, and that sort of really understanding different perspectives on that problem. So the element of time, I think, is really important. The second piece would be developing deep skills in sort of cross-boundary communication. And sometimes that's the ability for us as biological scientists to talk to the physical scientists, as natural scientists to talk to social scientists, our colleagues in the humanities. A lot of times it's the ability to actually engage with different elements of the public, whether it's our communities, the private sector, et cetera. And particularly as we think about the compelling social and racial dimensions of our work, how we engage with communities where there really might be profound differences in history and culture and privilege, and what kind of cross-boundary work that takes. And so when we think about that time and that skill and cross-boundary communication, we're pretty good at it. So for the last 20 years, the School of Environmental and Forest Sciences has been deeply partnered with the Yakama Nation, looking at tribal forestry issues. And it's that 20 years of shared knowledge that has made the problems that they tackle so much more sophisticated. Climate impacts groups been around for 20 years. A lot of our groups that work on fisheries and marine policy, our earthquake early warning systems, all of them have that sort of longevity. Our IPCC authors, the people that work on climate change. I'm also struck by the founding story of our Washington Ocean Acidification Center, where for over 2 years, Terry Klinger and Jan Newton, once a month, convened by the venerable late Bill Ruckelshaus, sat around a table trying to understand what a scientific agenda around ocean acidification might be. And it took 2 years to get there, to create that robust understanding. But the third element, remember I said there were 3, I only got to 2. It was like time and this cross-boundary stuff. It's people, and it's actually having the individuals and the scope, and I would say the staff that help us do this. So, Margaret, we've got about 1,000 staff members in the college. About 600 are research staff. And they're the people that come year after year, day after day, week after week, working these problems and creating continuity in our research agenda, our research endeavor, and our community engagement. I really want to do a shout out to, we can do this because the staff are with us all the way, with the faculty, grad students, and postdocs. So that's the not so simple formula: time, cross-boundary work, and a great staff. That's all we need.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned time. I can't help but chuckle just a little bit, because as geologists and earth scientists, we kind of have a different view of time.
Yeah, we sure do.
The statement that you recited about the Salish people and our occupation of their land, which we often do at meetings at UW, always makes me, I can't help but think of something that your college will appreciate more than most, which is that, 12 or 14,000 years ago, if I get it right, we were under about 800 meters of ice here before most of these people came. And so they got to watch sea level rise by 300 or 400 feet, which, if you think about the pace of climate change we're thinking about now of a few millimeters per year or whatever, they witnessed and experienced and were able to cope with things that even when we talk about climate change dwarf what we're imagining. And so it's nice to have a geologist or earth scientist perspective on time, because sometimes it helps us to be patient.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe sometimes it makes us too patient. And so that leads me to a question I can pose to you, Lisa, right back, if you don't mind, and we can talk about this together, of course. But we are at an extraordinary time, if you will, in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion, racism, and the history of our country really wrapped up in ways that have for the most part not been acknowledged very well. I just received a communication from my old Berkeley colleagues today, as a matter of fact. I don't know if you saw the origins of this or not, but it turns out that the earth sciences at large, earth and environmental sciences at large, have pretty much the most diverse undergraduate student populations of any of the sciences, along with the biological sciences. So if you compare us to math or physics or chemistry or even statistics, computer science, engineering, we look pretty good at the undergraduate level. As it turns out, we look terrible at the graduate level, and even worse at the professorial level. In fact, some of those fields I rattled off are actually more diverse than we are. So there's a gap. There's really a gap. And I think that as you go from the more traditionally established fields to the more integrative and less well-established and newer fields, the gap decreases. But I'm curious about your perspective, because I know you feel passionately about this, about the progress and the prospects for progress in the College of the Environment.
Yeah, so first of all, I hadn't seen that, and that's really interesting. And once again, I think that's something that we'll dig out and make sure the rest of our community gets to see it, because it's really says something about what needs to get done in terms of graduate education and recruitment into faculty positions. And for us, when we think about earth and environmental sciences writ large, it's our federal partners, it's our state and local, that workforce is on beyond sort of the ivory tower. So, I like the fact that you, a couple minutes ago, made an allusion to systemic racism as the pandemic that's been going on since 1619. And I think that is the perspective that we became more acutely aware of. Within the college, what I have seen, particularly over the last 6 months, is once again threefold. I've seen individuals educating themselves, increasing their awareness, doing some deep dives into thinking about what are the implications of the privileges that they have, and how are the awareness translating into action. It's at times been some really difficult conversations, and that has been coupled with thinking about what are these institutional barriers? Why is it? What happens to those undergraduate students? Why are they not in our graduate programs? Where are we failing that this is, that these diverse populations are not part of our faculty? And a lot of that work, Mark, has been going on within the units, the academic units within Washington Sea Grant, within Seacoast, and other areas, where what I've appreciated is that for each of the units, there's slightly different sort of cultures and barriers and policies that they're working on and rolling up their sleeves on. The other thing that's happening is across all the units, students and postdocs and staffs are creating sort of these cross-unit groups that are calling on, in particular, the faculty and the dean's office to take actions. And those demands and those conversations are really, really welcome, because they're fresh and they're urgent and they're timely, and it's added a lot to our conversation. So we're rolling up our sleeves and thinking about sort of institutional and cultural change, and it's hard work. We're all in different places personally and organizationally, but we are moving forward together. And we're working on admission policies, we're reviewing recruiting practices, we're looking at internal culture surveys and studies. We're standing up courses that standalone link environmental justice, and then we're sort of infusing environment justice, social justice, anti-racism perspectives into our existing courses. We're looking at how do we actually pay for what has previously been an assumed free labor, often emotionally taxing labor that BIPOC people contribute to these discussions. So there's a lot going on. And as the fall semester starts, or the fall quarter starts, and we're all together more, we're seeing sort of more of that accelerate. There's a long ways to go, but to a unit, we have been digging in, and I couldn't be prouder. And Mark, some of that work is working with you on sort of faculty hiring initiatives and the research exchange. And I know you're pretty passionate about the research exchange.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about what's going on there.
Well, let me back up. I will get to that. Let me back up for a second and say that for those of you who are kind of holding your breath and saying, what are the president and provost doing? We are working very hard to roll out a faculty diversity initiative that is really in a state of consultation. There's a balance between trying to do things quickly and do things well. And we're in a very sensitive environment where we do want to be sufficiently careful, for one reason, just to make sure we bring as many people along with us as possible. I have to say that a lot of this initiative will involve things that we are either already doing or should already be doing, and that what I've found coming here, especially from the University of California recently, is the University of Washington has not really been using all the tools at its disposal for diversity, especially in faculty hiring. And since George Floyd, I can say that our deans and our chairs and their faculty have become much more active in using those tools. And so we have change in the wind and a proactivity that's new here at the University of Washington, and that will really help. So there's, like I said, we're working with the Academic Senate, with student leadership, and with the community to make sure that we are as comprehensive as we can be, while not waiting too long to get launched. And of course, we will learn things in the process. Speaking about learning, I should say, Lisa, this is pretty close to my heart, and it actually has to do with my own family history, which I won't go into today. But when I became a dean at Berkeley many years ago, I pretty much adopted diversity of the mathematical and physical sciences as my primary goal. And that was a long time ago, almost 2 decades ago. And I can say quite honestly, and this continues to this day, that nearly everything I thought I knew and understood about diversity and what works and what's effective, I had to unlearn. And that has been very challenging. One of the things we learned, and we've had a lot of support in a consortium called the California Alliance that I'll talk about later, for which I was PI for a long time, is that we tend to focus a lot on things like inclusivity and community and bias, overcoming bias and implicit racism, explicit racism, which we shouldn't forget. But we have also inherited structures in the academy that inhibit our ability to become more diverse. And as we began to do more quantitative and qualitative research and started to publish this work and work together across a number of institutions, we realized that those structural barriers had long been neglected. and the fact that we've had so little progress in diversifying both the graduate population, well, the postdocs and faculty in the mathematical, physical, environmental, computer, engineering sciences has perhaps a lot more to do with structure than we think. The California Alliance, which was originally Berkeley, Stanford, Caltech, and UCLA, has now expanded to include University of Washington, Harvard, Michigan, Georgia Tech, and Texas. And we just got a renewal of funding, increase in funding from both the National Science Foundation and the Washington Research Foundation. And I'm really pleased to say that our own, your own Julia Parrish will be the local campus PI, but actually quite a bit more than that, because among this consortium of 9 institutions, which produces about 15% of the postdocs in the country, we, University of Washington, under Julia's leadership, will be in charge of the national postdoc program, which becomes basically a registry, if you will, or a common portal for underrepresented minority. By the way, I'm very aware I'm using the term underrepresented minority instead of BIPOC, because that's tied to how NSF supports us, so those of you who are wondering. But we will become the primary venue, if you will, for selecting and promoting and placing underrepresented minority postdocs in these fields, not just in these universities, but elsewhere. And I can tell you that the first version of this program with just the California Alliance was pretty remarkable in its success. Of the postdocs that came through our system, 2/3 of them have sought or achieved R1 research faculty positions. And that compares to about 25%, even among these elite universities who typical of the general population. I also want to mention that 40% of those postdocs are women of color, which is much higher than the fraction of women among postdocs in the country at large. So the structural aspect of this is pretty simple. We try to undo the old boy network of, hey, I've got this great graduate student who probably should come visit you because they might be a good postdoc for you. We facilitate those visits very intentionally among the students and the postdocs who are in our pool. And we find that people are very eager to host them, often very eager to offer them positions and collaborate in research with them and so forth. So we increase their visibility and their success. So I don't want to go on too long, except to say that we are really thrilled that this is going to be hosted at the University of Washington. And I hope all the faculty who are on this are listening, because we are going to have the best group of potential postdocs in the country for your consideration. And I want to take, if anybody has had the excuse of say, I would love to hire an underrepresented minority postdoc, if I could find them, well, we're finding them for you. And we're taking that excuse away. And it will be a marvelous opportunity for us, if you will, to have kind of first look at these marvelous students and colleagues for what they can bring to us. So that's my pitch, Lisa. And we will, if you want to know more, email Julia Parrish. You all know her.
So, Mark, I just want to pause and, first of all, you got a pretty busy day job. And the fact that this work that you started when you were a dean 20 years ago has continued, and you've brought it forward to us in your role as provost. I appreciate that, knowing the many, many things that are on your plate. The other thing I want to go back to is when you first started talking about it, you talked about how a lot of what you thought you knew turned out to be things that needed to be revisited. And I just want to thank you for saying that, because I think all of us that are working in this area are being alert to, we are working with seeking to innovate in areas and paying exquisite attention to what's working, but also paying a lot of attention to what's not working and what is falling by the wayside, and continuing to sort of revisit how we do things. And thank you for modeling that. I mean, I think it was just really great that you spoke that way. So we've got some time for some sort of last reflections. And Once again, Mark, it's really truly fun to have another earth scientist as provost, and we can have these conversations. So when you think about our field, we've made tremendous momentum over the last decade. But what do you see coming down the pike? Like, what do you see happening in the next decade or two? And we're real keen to hear that.
Oh boy, nothing
Yeah,
like an easy question, Lisa.
yeah.
Yeah, my first response to that is I must be too old to answer that question.
Nope, nope.
Um, if we go back to what we were talking about, the way people in their careers have evolved or changed, one of the things I would like to see, and I think we will see, is more of what I would kind of call serial evolution in people's careers. I'm a geophysicist, and I've done a number of different things within geophysics. Looking back on it, I might have done some other things a little bit farther afield, and I'm sure that that does apply to many of our faculty. But I think that the opportunities that we have for working quickly and collaboratively offer us more of a chance to continuously grow in our careers, and to share that growth with our students, to bring a broader perspective. And that takes me right back to a question I want to ask you, Lisa, publicly, which is the following. One of the wonderful things about the college and environment, and one of the original aspirations, was to overcome or blur the distinction between what many people would have called at the time basic science and environmental science, or basic science and applied science. And you in your career, you're kind of the poster child for that, being a tree ring person who did your work in the Quaternary Research Center, but you got your degree in forestry. I haven't forgotten that.
Yeah.
Definitely using physical science methods to understand climate and ecology. And I guess I throw this question back to you because we will have a leadership transition and we will have new aspirations for the college. But this is, as you know, probably better than anybody else, there is a somewhat of a centripetal tendency for the more what people often have referred to as basic science and the more applied or environmental science to diverge. And I'm wondering what thoughts you have on why the college has been successful and what kind of trajectory that suggests.
Oh, Mark, it's really fun to reflect on that, and particularly at this, like, 11 years down, and in the middle of the 12th year, because when I got here, we had put together, it's the biggest college of its type in the country. We put the Earth system together. We had Earth and Space Sciences, we had Atmospheric Sciences, Ocean. We had the two key resource-oriented, forestry and fisheries. We had marine and environmental policy. We had the program on the environment. We had like all these things, Sea Grant, just SAO at the time. And it was really big. And so I would be sort of told that, like, the talking point was that it was kind of big and comprehensive, and we had all of the pieces. And it was hard times because we were cutting the budget. These were units that didn't have relationships with each other. And what was really clear to me was having all the pieces together wasn't going to make any difference unless we could start to build bridges between these pieces, and in particular, build a really dynamic bridge between fundamental science and applied science, the one that was built on sort of respect and understanding and curiosity, etc. And it was hard going at first. A lot of the work, there was important thought leadership. I want to do a shout out to the first couple of years of college council members, because they would be looking at the P&T packets, which on some level were this gateway about what were our values and what we thought was legitimate within the college. And to be honest, a physical scientist would sort of look at a forestry or fisheries package and it looked very unfamiliar, and sort of vice versa. And those college councils, oh my goodness, I started making sure they just had so much coffee and so many cookies, because they spent hours together trying to understand what it was that constituted quality, scholarship, and impact. And sometimes impact was, if you will, kind of easy, or at least easy to count, like really strong impact factors. Sometimes the impact was that a work that maybe had only been cited a medium number of times, but had nevertheless fundamentally changed the way we manage resources here in the Pacific Northwest. And, you know, what do we think about that? So it's that impact. And so we had those difficult decisions and started to, and did them, the just magnificent statesmanship and respect by those thought leaders in the early days of the college. And you know who you are, you're out there, most of them are still there. I was so blessed as the dean to have that curiosity and respect. And so now a lot of what we think of as normal was really built in those early days. And it's, you know, Mark, I mean, you see this all the time. It's such a damn human process. You know, it's the quality of the people and the curiosity and the integrity that they bring to that process that allows them to do it. Now, the other thing I'll say is we are in the Pacific Northwest, and back in the old days when you walked out your door, but you know, you walk out your door and you're a member of the community. This community here in the Northwest expects science to show up. They expect science to be part of how we sort of manage resources. And so it creates some incredible opportunities for us to bridge those gaps. And so as part of, you may recall when the Board of Regents approved the college, they said, besides doing all that, you should stand up an institute, which we came to call Earth Lab, that would take all of this kind of interdisciplinary work, not just within the college, but across the college in engineering, built environment, Evans School of Social Work, and seek to make sure that we were delivering that work. So it's a pretty magnificent organization that we've got here, Mark, because it does span that nerdiest of the nerdy cusp of discovery, people that are, you know, sort of working on these sort of nanoscale processes that have huge implications for the globe, on to people that are, you know, seeking to work with citizens to understand invasive species among tribal communities on the coast. I mean, we've got it all. So thanks for asking. It's a huge source of pride and joy, as you can see.
Well, I think we're out of time. I'm out of time in any case, almost. And that's a good way for us all to say thank you and congratulations, Lisa.
Well, and then I have, I got a little bing. Did you guys hear my bing? I got a bing. And my bing says that there's a question, and I am going to read the question. What are the steps in the dean search, and when will we have a new dean? And you're in charge of that, Mark. You want to talk about that?
Yes, we actually have 3 dean searches going on this year. So to be honest with you, I struggle sometimes to keep track of them all, but we have a search committee that has sprung into action and a search firm that is assisting them. And the co-chairs are Renee Chang, of the Dean of the College of the Built Environment, and Nancy Albritton, who is our new Dean of the College of Engineering. Actually, Nancy and Renee are both relatively new. We, of course, would love to find the right person this year. This will be a difficult year to search, but I think the answer as to when will we have a new dean is when we find the right person.
Mark, do you want to talk about the incredibly important and at the same time incredible annoying way in which everybody involved with the dean search is trained to answer? Like if I say to you, we run into each other, Mark, I go, how's the dean search going? I'm your good buddy. I'm the former dean or the current dean. And you say,
Well, you just got a version of that.
uh-huh,
There's a good bit of confidentiality involved in this. Obviously, we're excited about the search committee, wonderful
mm-hmm,
colleagues, not just from within the college, of course, and from the rest of the university and the community as well. But they are talking to and talking about specific candidates, and it's not appropriate for them to share information with you.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, so it remains highly confidential until sometime, probably early March. We will do something that is like either Zoom or in person, where candidates come, their identity is revealed about 24 hours before they actually show up on campus. And at that point, individuals will have the opportunity to interact with them. Now, one of the members of the search committee, thank you, Chris, has emphasized that they're still developing the list of people they're talking to, and nominations are welcome. And I'm looking at the faculty, grad students, and and Chris is helping us. Can you all see what Chris is? You can emphasize the search committee is welcoming nominations either to the search firm or to RLUKE@WITTKIEFFER.com.
That's Whit Kiefer is the search firm.
Yeah. So nominate people. And you know, what's so interesting about the process, having been through it, and Mark, you had your own version of this. The crazy thing is, we often are sort of targeting people that are incredibly happy and not looking for a job. Like, they don't know that they want to come to the University of Washington. And so this nomination, you know, is like the way we sort of shake people out of their, you know, comfort zone and invite them to engage with us. I do want to say that in my work, for instance, on being on the board of the American Geophysical Union, et cetera, there's a lot of interest in this position. And people recognize they are interested in it because of the quality of the faculty, staff, postdoc students at the University of Washington. And quite frankly, the kind of really visionary leadership that we have seen in the last several years with our current president, Provost. So I think we're going to get a good dean. I've got that feeling.
I'm confident in the process. The University of Washington is a little bit unusual. Most universities do not have kind of the public vetting that we do for dean's candidates, but there will be in March at least a virtual town hall, effectively meeting for each of the candidates, the finalist candidates, to present their vision and their views and tell us about who they are. You know, we have our fingers crossed about how much of that process toward the end might be in person. Certainly the final person will come visit us, you know, barring utter catastrophe with COVID-19. But we're excited, and I would encourage everybody to involve yourselves. You know, the committee is public. The information for how to contact the committee is public, and they will appreciate your nominations, and they will appreciate your ideas about what kind of people they should be looking for.
And so the updates are on your website, right? On the Provost Office website, Mark?
I would assume so, but I can't tell you for certain. But
they are.
Yeah.
So when you're, you know, the sort of the logic here is that the Provost is running the search, and I've just gotten a confirmation that yes, it is. You know, that, so, you know, look under, and there's a relatively top level current dean searches.
The comment I want to make, Lisa, is that searches that are national searches or international searches that involve search firms often are biased toward external candidates. And and the reason is that you know everything that's good and not so good about your internal candidates, whereas people from the outside can represent themselves as they wish, because it's largely a confidential process until the finalists are determined. So I would just encourage you to reflect upon your own, the leaders in your own departments and programs who, even if you know that they're not perfect, could grow to be an excellent dean.
Wonderful. Yes, of course, of course. I'm really glad you mentioned that. So you people who are nominating people, think about internal nominations too. So Mark, my not so secret chat input is telling me we have no more questions. Is somebody going to arise? Is somebody going to quick give us another question?
I fear we've put them all asleep, Lisa, but let's hope not.
Oh, well, in which case, you know, this gives me a chance to sort of pause and thank you, Mark. You know, you have a busy schedule, and being part of the state of the college is not sort of the norm here. And I think it's been really useful for us because we really will be working so closely with you as we sort of chart sort of the future leadership, et cetera. And then I just simply want to say to all of you who are out there in Zoom land, you know, normally we would go over and have some beverages and some hors d'oeuvres and have that wonderful informal time to gather and chat with each other. And of course I miss that and look forward to the times when we can gather in person again to reflect and to celebrate. And I want to thank you all for the incredible work that you're doing. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Stay safe. Have a great afternoon. And thank you so much for being part of the college.
Thank you, Lisa. Take care, everybody.